Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. Thank you so much for joining. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed, because we try to do this every single week, and we've actually done it 2 weeks on the trot now, so it's almost like it's becoming a regular thing. For all you regulars, thanks again for dropping by and spending your Thursday evening with us. All for anybody new, well, this is your opportunity to talk about all the things shooting, firearms, range related. If you've got any questions, any topics that you think that we should be talking about, then please do get involved. Use that chat box, and if you're watching this after the stream, then you can use the comment section as well to ask any questions, and I'll try to both live and recorded get back to you as soon as possible and discuss everything that you want to discuss. So I hope you've all had a fantastic week. As it seems, Finland is playing an international game of mess about and find out, and I think most people are already aware that certainly the Nordics as a whole, but Finland in particular, is a very gun friendly. It's certainly more accepted within culture in terms of shooting, hunting, and firearms ownership. And we've seen this quite staggering announcement that they are planning to introduce 300 additional ranges and sharing, I think it's something like an 800 odd mile border with Russia. I think we can all take a guess of why they would want to do that, and they have a good long history of being very well prepared and seeing things before they come and being ready for them. But I'll bring up the articles on this so we can have a little bit of a poke through. Football, ice hockey, shooting. Finland hopes hobby will boost national defense. So, of course, they're not covering this, they're not sugarcoating this. This is purely about national defense. Now, yes, long-term viewers of this channel may understand my nervousness about talking about firearms and defense, but we're talking about national defense here, and I don't think anybody can have any objection about the ability of a nation to defend itself. I hope not, anyway, because the NRA and SRA and UK PSA are in very big trouble. NATO's newest member, of course, that's going to be a massive part of this. With Finland being a part of NATO, it means if stuff does seem to kick off, then there's going to be a lot of other bigger brothers getting involved. Not that I think Finland necessarily needs help, which share a 830-mile border with Russia, plans to open hundreds of new shooting ranges. And actually, there's some really interesting stats and figures within here. Finland plans to open more than 300 new shooting ranges. So it's not like new clubs or get more people shooting. Obviously, that's the main goal of all of this. It's the 300 shooting ranges. Could you imagine? Do you imagine if the UK had that as a goal? I genuinely don't actually know how many sort of Home Office approved clubs there are or physical ranges there are within the UK, but I would hazard a guess that having 300 new ranges would be quite a significant addition. Finland plans to open more than 300 new shooting ranges to encourage more citizens to take up the hobby in the interest of national defense. It is hoped that the shooting in the Nordic country, which last year became NATO's newest member and which shares an 830-mile border with Russia, could become as popular as football or ice hockey. There are about 670 shooting ranges in Finland, down from about 2,000 at the turn of the century. By 2030, the government plans to increase the number to about 1,000. And I do generally find this quite funny. The circles that we seem to go round in, and we will be exploring it a little bit later in terms of the history of defense of the realm here within the UK and the significance it has to our shooting ranges and shooting organizations. But it's like, since the turn of the century, there's been some sort of effort, whether it's from the government or elsewhere from the EU perhaps, to reduce the amount of firearms ownership, to reduce the amount of people going out there shooting, to reduce the amount of ranges. And now it's like, oh no, sorry. The reason we had all of these was to make sure that people were proficient with firearms, that they had skill at arms, and that they could defend their country if they needed to. Obviously, the UK is maybe slightly different because we've got a fairly treacherous bit of water in between us and the rest of the world. But when you've got an 830-mile border with Russia, yeah, probably a good idea to be fairly handy and ready to go if somebody does want to mess about and find out. So yeah, it's just this complete circle of let's reduce everything, let's make it more difficult. I think the EU, obviously there's the lead ban, they were trying to restrict 10-round magazines and everything to 10-round magazines and ban various other guns. And now Finland's like, no, we really do want as many shooting ranges, as many people proficient with firearms as possible. The present government aims to increase the amount of shooting ranges in Finland from roughly 700 up to 1,000. This is because of our defense model, which benefits from people having and developing their shooting skills on their own. I mean, that's sort of a fairly obvious statement. I don't think that's any really high top level strategy there. It's like, oh, if people know how to shoot, they're going to be able to defend us better. Like that's not really a defense model. That's just common sense, really. Common sense to defense model. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which of course is going to be the catalyst of all of this, there's been various talks about Finland and NATO and Russia and Ukraine over the past couple of years. So that is very much the root cause of this. The popularity, and this again is very interesting. It's not even that the government really wants to push people to do it. It very much seems that people are pursuing it already. The popularity of voluntary training courses aimed at teaching reservists and civilians how to defend Finland has doubled. And there has also been a big increase in the number of Finns applying for gun licenses. Last year, the Finnish Defence Training and Education Association, MPK, that sounds like HK, I mean, the MPK should have some MP5 HKs, right? That should only be right. Put on 116,000 training days, a significant increase on previous years where there were usually about 50,000. That's still, again, in terms of the amount of safety training classes that I think the NSRA, NRA, and UKPSA probably have combined in a year, I think they would be pretty lucky to get anywhere near 50,000. Said enthusiasm among Finnish people to defend their country was strong. Yeah, we know what that means. We have a very high will to defend the country. He said after completing the courses, participants need to practice their new skills on shooting ranges, and there's no point having the best instruction in the world, getting to an absolutely top level shooter and not being able to maintain it. Shooting, be that hunting, be that for defense of a country, or for sports shooting, for competition, is a perishable skill. Yes, you're it's just like riding a bike, but you want to keep things sharp. One part of this training and education is, of course, education in shooting, because people want to be a part of this comprehensive security. So they're coming to our courses, and after that, we need more shooting ranges. That's really the long and the short of it. But trying to get to 1,000 ranges within by 2020. So that's 6 years. So they want 50 new ranges a year. That's not a small investment, and not forgetting that places like Finland, they are pretty well regarded, certainly when it comes to practical shooting, when it comes to YPSC, number of world champions across pretty much every discipline, from Finland. Jarkko Laukio, a member of Team Magload, he was the previous standard world champion, came fourth in the last one, but is the standard senior world champion. Fortunately, he was beaten by another team Maglo, Lucas Roth. So we still have the standard world champion. Sami Hakumati, he's Finnish. He's vice modified champion, two world shoots in a row, and Jarkko and Sami, again both from Finland, are the current open and standard rifle world champions. So Finns don't take shooting lightly, and they are very, very good at it. Another article, just have a quick, I think it's pretty much the same. Finland definitely didn't steal the picture from this article, just putting that out there. Finland, which shares a border with Russia, plans to build 300 new ranges as interest in national defense surges. And again, I think this is one of the big points to take away from this, is the sort of proactive national pride that the Finns seem to have, that the civilians are identifying that they need to get their act together. They need to make sure that they are proficient. It's not the government trying to be reactive here. It's actually the civilians and the Finns themselves being proactive about making sure that they have skill at arms. So it's just I find in some ways it's quite funny because of this general push to reduce shooting sports and firearms ownership, and then as soon as things get a little bit rocky, everyone's like, no, everyone takes up shooting again, just in case, just because you can't stop an army with strongly worded letters and pronouns, can you? You just have to, you really need to be able to get stuff done. Try to tread a very fine line here. So that I find quite obviously the swing, the full circle that we seem to have come, and I've had this general feeling within the UK as well, talking to members of the public. People seem a lot more switched on, and the question is there going to be a WW3? Is there going to be a need for people to be put into the armed forces and defend this country? And I think there is this general, with everything going on in the world at the moment, there is this people aren't stupid. They tend to be quite a lot of the time, but they don't. Sometimes they get lucky, and I think a lot of people have actually switched onto this and are probably now understanding the root history of our sport. So this whole sentiment of defense of the realm, we've talked about we've talked about this, I think, recently on the stream, but again, it's something that everybody should be aware of, certainly within the UK. And it's not just restricted to the UK. There's many different other countries that shooting sports developed from defending the country. There's the I'm pretty sure it was Norway, the biathlon. The biathlon, before it became an Olympic sport, was created to teach skill at arms whilst skiing. It was a military exercise that they used to train people that ended up then making its way into the Olympics. So there's so many different areas of the sport that have a sort of military defense of the realm beginning, and you only need to look at our national governing bodies, the largest target sports organizations and associations here within the UK. And unlike last time we discussed this, I actually have everything ready. It's almost like I'm prepared. What is going on? So the National Rifle Association, not the US one, which is more famously known. This is the NRA of the UK, the UK's National Rifle Association. They are situated in Bisley, and they run the National Shooting Centre. Who are we and what do we do? The National Rifle Association is the national governing body for full bore target rifle shooting, centre fire target pistol shooting. They could maybe be doing a little bit more to get that more widespread, but anyway, and target shooting with shotguns in the United Kingdom, and provides support and advice to many other shooting associations within the Commonwealth. The association was founded in 1859, incorporated by Royal Charter in 1890, and became a registered charity, even though they've tried so much to lose it over the past few years, in 1963. That's not what we're really all worried about. These days, the association is primarily concerned with promoting the efficiency of the armed forces and developing and encouraging civilian full-bore target rifle shooting in furtherance of defense of the realm. We greatly value our military heritage and close links with the UK armed forces. So there we go. But arguably the largest shooting, sport shooting association, target shooting association here in the UK is all about the armed forces and all about the defense of the realm. Then we have the NSRA, the National Small Bore Association, which was born out of the arse kicking the British got in the Boer War, and it was decided again. So, Bisley and the NRA was basically created out of a need for skillet arms. The NSRA was an attempt to basically make that more accessible, to allow the working man to be able to pick up a gun and train and become proficient with it. That's where we have things like bell shooting in pubs, and just that's why we have the small bore rifle, the miniature rifle exemption, to allow effectively unrestricted access to get skillet arms, to make sure that people can cheaply and easily practice and maintain their skillet arms. The NSRA, the National Small Bore Rifle Association, in their memorandum, this is so we go memorandum of association of the National Small Bore Rifle Association. The objectives for which the society is established are to fit Her Majesty's subjects for the defence of her realm. They do need to change this, unless Charles now does identify as a woman, by the advancement of skill in rifle and other shooting, by provision of skill instruction and opportunity to practice, and for the furtherance of such objects, to exercise lawfully all or any of the following powers, but so far as blah blah blah. Anyway, what we're worried about here: defense of the realm. Yes, another major large shooting association here in the UK is there for defense of the realm, and obviously something that I'm more attuned with, the UK PSA, the United Kingdom Practical Shooting Association, which oversees practical shooting here within the UK. They are the national governing body for practical shooting here in the UK, and oversee IPSC, the International Practical Shooting Confederation, in their constitution. The advancement of there we go. So it is second on this one, to encourage skill in practical shooting by providing instruction and practice in the use of firearms amongst Her Majesty's subjects, so that they will be better fitted to serve their country in the armed forces, the armed forces reserves, or any other organization in which their services may be required in the defense of the realm. So this is what has made me laugh for so many years. The your controversy and the what was it, the controversial topics in terms of talking about firearms and defense and all of this. It's quite literally at the highest level. Our shooting associations here and many across the world were born to ensure that people within that nation were proficient and had skill at arms to be able to defend the realm. And it's, again, absolutely fascinating that we seem to have come full circle. Finland has identified that maybe the average skill at arms, even for a country that is, I think, above average in terms of their proficiency with firearms, it needs more improvement. It needs more facility. That you need to be able to practice closer to home, more easily, more frequently. And it's going to be very interesting to see if this ends up spreading, if this ends up coming into place anywhere else. I would love to really have my finger on the pulse at the moment in terms of the membership figures and membership inquiry figures to the likes of the NRA, the NSRA, and the UK PSA as well. I just have this feeling that as a nation, and many nations out there are probably getting a lot more attuned to it and a lot more aware, and probably a light bulb moment for a lot of people going, yes, it's a great sort of benign hobby, sport shooting, shooting at paper, shooting at frangible targets or whatever, but you know, transferable skills, and not forgetting, whilst it's obviously very much moving itself to the sports arena, to the Olympics, as most Olympic sports actually started from warfare. IPSC started with police and military. It started in teaching practical shooting techniques for the real world, so that the police and the military would be better at doing their job, better at being able to go into real life situations, real life scenarios, and be more proficient with their guns in those situations. It's all well and good being able to stand there within an indoor range and get a penny-sized group at 15 yards with your Glock. But when you're out there in the real world, when things are moving, when things are distracting you, where you know, it's split second decisions that can make the difference between life or death, that's a completely wholly different environment, and the way you need to approach that has to be different than a controlled range environment. And that's very much what Jeff Cooper did. He took that sort of confined, sanitized range environment and mixed it up a little bit. He got you running and moving and presenting different targets and barricades and apertures and doors and all of that. And that's what sort of gave birth into IPSC. And IPSC seems to be doing the same thing that all sort of military or police, well, mainly military sports have gone through the journey. You know, discus, you don't see many people out there on a in war throwing a discus anymore, unless you're a very underfunded army. But discus, javelin, shot put, they were all weapons of war, and now they are purely sport. That's where we've been heading for a long time. Now, don't with shooting and shooting sports, don't get me wrong, wars these days are not so much boots on the ground. There's a lot of technology, a lot of, air warfare going on, naval warfare going on, but it's still, certainly when you border a country that's seemingly at the drop of a hat can invade you, you still need to be able to put those boots on the ground. You still need to be able to defend your realm. So yeah, let me know what you think about it. I think it's going to be something fascinating to watch. I really hope overall it doesn't end up going the way that it seems to be looking like it's going. And at the end of the day, it's better to be, it's the old cliche saying, I'd rather have a gun and not need it than need a gun and not have it. And I think that's hopefully where Finland are at the moment. Not that they actually need to, but worst case, if everybody gets really, really good at shooting, we're going to win a few more medals. We're going to get, we're going to do better at the Olympics. We're going to do better within IPSC on the international stage. That's the worst case that could happen. Best case, everything ends up going south, and we're as prepared as can be for it. So yeah, let me know what you think about that. Have you seen anything else? Do you have any other thoughts on what is going on there? Do you know a little bit more about your own? If we've got people from outside of the UK, which I've seen we do, do you know a little bit more about your history in terms of where shooting sports came from, your shooting organizations? It would be really interesting to hear the similarities, if there are, in terms of the UK shooting bodies and the history of that and defense of the realm and all of that. So yeah, let me know what you think. Frank, great to hear that you're watching me once again in the jacuzzi. It's I'm not going to say anything. Carl Volt, got my 3D printer finally set up, so I'm going to put Magload out of business. That's we don't mind some competition. It keeps us on our toes. We are focusing more on CNC machining now, so I guess you're going to have to get a lathe as well. 3D printing so old now, and injection molding as well. Nobody mentioned the magazines, please. David Kiddle, evening everyone. Thanks, David, for joining. You can thank David actually for tonight's main topic in terms of Finland and what they are doing with their ranges, because he was the one that actually sent it to me. The story is actually a couple of weeks old, but seems to be very quiet over here in the UK about it. That's probably because the government are going, Oh no! Like we don't need more logical reasons why people need firearms. Um, Carl, the 300 new ranges is just my ploy to trip Callum into Finnish brutality. I do very much need to go over to Finland. I've technically been to Denmark. Um, Literally just stopped there for a Burger King, and the truffle burger was amazing. That was my highlight of Denmark. Been through Norway. Maybe I can't. It was a very, very long drive. But definitely been to Sweden. That's where the Rifle World Champion, the Rifle World Shoot was, IPSC Rifle World Shoot, a number of years ago, which I had the pleasure of going and filming. Hoping to get out to the Rifle World Shoot in Finland, not necessarily for myself to shoot, but to support the members of Team Magload that will be out there shooting. So I don't need a lot of convincing to go to Finland. You've got some of the world's best Formula One drivers. You know, you've got incredible pedigree, and you like your guns and shooting, and a significant portion of Team Magload is over in Finland as well. So yeah, and Norway. So we've don't really need a lot of excuse to go. We just actually haven't pulled our finger out to go there. John Hewitt, the English channel that is no border, we are already being invaded. Moving swiftly on. Uh, Cryptos. The government is not fussed at this point. They know that very few will return from this up and coming war, will be cannon fodder, which will eliminate most of the gun owners' risk from a government standpoint. Or, well, I would say history completely disagrees. A lot of the reason that we have firearm certificates and the level of restriction and regulation here in the UK was because after World War, I think it was that, yeah, after World War Two, there was a lot of, or maybe it was World War One. No, World War Two. Anyway, after a big war, um, there was a lot of, obviously people return. I guess it was World War Two. Um, anyway, there's going to be better history buffs than me, but in the UK, people came back from a very big war. Obviously, after a very big war, the place wasn't exactly gleaming. It wasn't. We weren't flourishing. There was a lot of destruction, a lot of debt. There was still ration, and you end up having a lot of people that have literally just spent the last few years shooting at people. They've become very proficient at it because that's why they've come back. A lot of people had guns from being out there in the war, so you've got a lot of people that aren't particularly happy about the conditions they're living in, are very well armed and very proficient with those arms. So that's where a lot of our restrictions and regulations came from, and I think there's nothing to say that we wouldn't see the same again. So they wouldn't necessarily be cannon fodder. You're just going to end up with a lot of people coming back, with a lot of proficiency in shooting. Mochaccino, thanks for dropping by. The toaster, shooting and firearms being made taboo in Britain was a big mistake. Yes, absolutely. There is no reason for shooting and firearms to be taboo. It's the nut behind the butt. It's the the trigger doesn't, the finger doesn't, no, the trigger doesn't pull the finger. What is the book called? I'm pretty sure I've got it. Is that the one? No. Now that one's just called More Guns, Less Crime. I have to say I haven't read it in full. I liked the title of it. I swear I've got the other one of the trigger doesn't pull the finger or something like that. That I might be getting that completely wrong. But anyway, guns don't hurt people. People hurt people. Neil Remy, the UK now want you to use a gun for them, but they didn't think twice about taking our guns off us in '97. Our political system is confused and corrupt. I would go more confused. Corruption takes a bit of competency. You're just confused and bewildered. It's something that's been posed to me like many times, in the general sense of what's going on in the world is that if we bring in conscription again, and I, as a healthy, reasonably young male, I would obviously be called up to service. Personally, I don't think I would. I'd be able to, lean on my engineering experience and the fact that we have effectively a factory with CNC tools. So I'd be far more useful here than on the front line. But you never know. There would just be a sense of irony. I've just spent the last 6-7 years being told that I can't have a certificate, and then it's like, yeah, there you go, there's a gun, go off to war, where we trust you now. Anyway, evening, Mr. E30, thanks for joining. What was the shooting show like? Thanks, Peter, for reminding me. Oh, Frank, World War One, Callum, and then change of more restrictions after World War II. Thanks, Frank. Peter Rose, what was the shooting show like? This was something that I wanted to discuss. So moving away from Finland and maybe slightly more positive. Positive news or topics. So last weekend was the British Shooting Show, and there are a few caveats, and I don't want to sit here and bash the British Shooting Show. I really, really don't. I want to try and be as fair and constructive as possible with it. But we arrived at the shooting show. We were stood outside the door, ready to go in at 10:20. I took my leaving photo at 12:53. So basically 2.5 hours we were there. Now, I have to caveat it that obviously myself and Connors, we're in the trade. I've also been going to the British Shooting Show. I worked out that next year is the 10-year anniversary of my first visit to the Great British Shooting Show. So next year it will be 10 years. So we've and I've done it apart from COVID, I've done it every single year. So I've been to 8 different British shooting shows now. And being in the trade, we have our finger on the pulse a lot more. We know what's going on. We talk and see a lot of people within the industry and reps on a routine basis. So naturally, there would be less new things or less surprises or less overall interesting things for us to go and see. Plus, we are very much focused within the practical shooting industry. So a lot of it, whilst I still love air guns and over and unders and side by sides and the craftsmanship and the really high end match pairs and stuff like that, we're going there for business. We're going there with our practical heads on, and the British Shooting Show isn't really very practical heavy. So we were able to go round. We went round it twice in 2.5 hours, and we were still stopping and talking to people that we know and catching up with, popping outside for vape breaks and queuing up to get our Scotch eggs, our flapjacks and biltong, and swiping a Smizer patch. Thanks, Connors. So it's I don't think I'm necessarily your average customer going, and necessarily my view and opinion of it is the most representative. But having been there for nearly 10 years, going to the British Shooting Show for nearly 10 years, and having been to it at Stoneleigh, where my first experience of the British Shooting Show was, and now the NEC, I think constructively they need to get away from the NEC. If they want the British Shooting Show to survive, they need to go back to Stoneleigh or a similar setup or a similar place or location like Stoneleigh. I don't think the British Shooting Show is going to survive if it stays at the NEC. Now, don't get me wrong. I think moving from Stoneleigh to the NEC was a good move. It potentially a brilliant move at the time. The shooting show was growing. It had outgrown Stoneleigh, right? And yes, the NEC doesn't necessarily have the charm of Stoneleigh. It's not, an agricultural center. It is effectively just this, these massive, mundane, big halls. But the British Shooting Show had outgrown it. And as the show was growing, they needed, they wanted to get more stands in. They wanted to be able to allow people to have bigger stands and make it bigger and better with more activities. And we saw that. We saw the increase. I think the year before COVID, or yeah, it was literally the year of COVID, it's 2020. They had branched out into another hall, and they had a competition. They had a IPSC Action Air that was being run to a level. It was a level 1, but it could have been a level 3, right? They'd spilled out into this hall. Every nook and cranny of the shooting show was filled. They had the laser targets. They had that SAS sort of smoke room, smoke bang, or whatever they call it. The air gun ranges that they've always had. They had the miniature rifle range truck in there, and it still had the nickname at the time, the Great British Shotgun Show. But there were the smaller mum and pop sort of brick and mortar stalls being represented there. Certainly with spilling out into the other hall, there was like this whole practical area, which was amazing to see. The UK PSA was there. And yes, it's no fault of their own. They were onto a very good thing. It was growing, and moving to the NEC was paying off. But COVID has had a massive, long-lasting effect on shows. It's had a massive, long-lasting effect, certainly on the British Shooting Show. There was so much backlash in some of the decisions that they made the first year back. Last year, it was noticeably desolate. So much open space and so many empty stands and people that had pulled out at the last minute. And it's no surprise that they've had to move hall. And whilst I didn't exactly get my tape measure out, it definitely felt like a smaller hall. Now, overall, the show felt better than last year. It felt busier. It felt more bustling, but that was because it felt more condensed. They had less space, so there was less space for to be open, so everyone was a little bit closer together. But we both noticed a decline in the variety of stands, so the disciplines being represented, a decline in the number of stands. And if you went onto their website, they were doing this very cheeky thing of listing all the brands that were going to be there, even though, in some cases, 10 or 20 of those brands were on one stand. So it's like wasn't really a fair representation of how much was going on there, which is a shame. So I don't think it's any fault of their own, but we've lost this magic, and this magic of the British Shooting Show, and I think the appeal of the British Shooting Show. And if they continue to stand their ground at the NEC, they will quite literally end up dying on that hill. They need to, they made that jump, and they were doing well through no fault of their own. COVID, knocked them for 6. I think they really need to bring it back. And the issue is, going there as somebody in the trade, like, we've never exhibited at the British Shooting Show. We absolutely would love to. It's something that we want to tick off and go and do. There's sort of a mark of prestige in a way of going to the British Shooting Show. But it just seems to be getting more and more expensive. I think it's something in the region for a 3x6 stand, which we would need. I think it's something in the region. Last time we got quotes, it was like £2,500 for the stand. And when we go there ourselves, and it seems smaller, there seems overall less attendance, when there doesn't seem to be the sort of the practical footfall. Attending a show, I think we talked about it last week, it's not just the 2.5 grand for a stand. It costs thousands in hotel and travel and the disruption and the time. So there was nothing jumping out at me saying we need to be here next year. And I think the same thing, there's so many people that I talk to, yes, if you talk to GMK or Viking or Sportsman Gun Center, they will be there every single year because they have the budgets to be able to do it. When you look at the small to medium businesses, it's just they just can't justify it. and there's not as much justifiable return. So I really think for their sake, they need to move back to Stoneleigh to enable them to lower the price of the stand, to get better representation of this sport. You know, whilst we love the guys at the likes of GMK and Viking and Sportsman Gun Center and Ray Trade and all of that. I mean, that was probably the biggest indicator for us. You know, Ray Trade, I don't think necessarily has ever the biggest stand, but they have usually a big stand at the British Shooting Show. You can't miss Ray Trade normally. And well, we didn't see them at all, and it was only from another post that they seemed to sort of be piggybacking off of the Oxford Gun Company, and it was just like, hang on a minute, like that's when you have somewhere like Ray Trade not having a big stand. Now that could be things going on with Ray Trade, but it just felt like everyone had sort of tightened up a little bit. So really for the sake of sports, for the sake of the British Shooting Show, I think they need to go back to Stoneleigh. That's just I know it's a cliche thing at this point, but I genuinely think the writing's on the wall there, and if they don't look at it, then it will be the end. Especially when you have like shows like the National Shooting Show, previously the Northern Shooting Show, which just offers a lot more. It's much easier to convince your partner, to convince your whole family to go out to the day at the National Shooting Show rather than the British Shooting Show. I wouldn't. I just genuinely wouldn't bring my wife. I wouldn't, bring family to the British Shooting Show, but I wouldn't think twice about doing it to the National. And I think that's what the British Shooting Show needs to address. Although they seem to be going more the trade route, but they need the trade there. And at the moment, there's too many people out there in the trade that won't do it. That can't that can't justify it. So anyway, that's my very long review of the British Shooting Show. I will say, to completely contradict absolutely everything that I've just said, I will always still go to the British Shooting Show, but I think like this year we only went for effectively half a day. That's probably all I will budget in for next year, but I will still go, certainly for my 10-year anniversary of going. And also I would still highly recommend anybody that hasn't been before, it's still worth a day out, right? It's still worth going. If you've not been to any of these shows, it's worth going and seeing it, because you'll be seeing everything for the first time. You'll end up spending 20 minutes, half an hour on every stand looking at everything, because you would have never seen it before. And there's going to be a lot more value for somebody going for the first time or maybe the second time. But if you're a regular, I think people that have been many times before are all saying the same thing. Like, and I also wasn't seeing a lot of stuff being carried out of the show, whereas previously you've gone to the show and you've got people like hoarding things on their shoulder coming out the doors, and you just didn't see that. Anyway, that's my, it's generally to be constructive. I don't want to sit here and just bash them. I want the British Shooting Show to thrive. I want it to do well. I just think that's going to be at Bisley. David Kidd will need a practical show down south. I know what you're hinting at. We will be having a Magload open day in the summer, 100%. I know we say this every year, but we didn't have our winter one. We were thinking of doing it February, just before the British Shooting Show, but that's sort of been and gone now. But we're going to do like a summer barbecue hangout sort of thing. There's been a lot going on at the unit. It's people that have been down previously, you probably see quite a big difference and change in the layout and overall tidiness, which makes me very, very happy. So yeah, we will be doing a show. I think we will probably have to rely a little bit more on the outside space, just because of stuff that's going on indoors. So yes, it'd be better to do that during the summer. Will it be a practical show? Probably not, but we will be inviting people like, Caliber, Cotswold Classic Arms, iWholesales. Last time we had Zero West, a local British watch company, which just had me walking around with a semi most of the day. So we will try to get as many people down, and give them as much notice as possible. Firing Solutions is just up the road as well, one of our dealers, but also a Double Alpha dealer. We will, try and get as many people down as possible, even Black Rifle. Just see who's about and try and have an unofficial Southern practical shooting show. Let's see what you guys are saying. Oh, we need the bourbon update. I'm on the Russell Reserves 10 this evening. It's one of those, just like the Widow Jane, that I have to stop myself and go, no, save it. Like drink some of the easier, cheaper stuff first. Like I could just literally drink this every single night. It's so good. Did you film on Friday? No, I didn't. I did go up there with my backpack full of all my gear, drone, mics, shotgun mic, camera, gimbal. And I did have videos in my head, right? I wanted to do videos at the Caliber Innovation stand, because there's a number of new products that they've got, from their Kel-Tec range to the Board Buddy guns, the M22. I wanted to go and speak to Wildcat moderators about the whole shift in moderator law, and them potentially being deregulated and off ticket, and how that would affect them. We all know it's going to be bloody amazing, but from people that make moderators, actually talk from the horse's mouth, maybe even talk to some passers-by about what they think about it, what they think about the show. And Cotswold Classic Arms, and there was custom fit guards. I haven't sat down with Richard and made a video with him for a very, very long time. So there was ones that I had in my head that we could go and do. And to be honest, the practicality of it, Caliber Innovations is only like a 45 minutes drive for me. If I want to go and make a load of videos about their stuff, I'd rather do it in a quiet, sort of contained room, rather than a hustling and bustling show. And as you say, David, the Caliber Innovation store was rammed all 3 days. It was like you couldn't move, and it's I didn't want to get in the way of you guys with the guns, or have to be stood there in the middle of the aisle with the guns. So it's like, if I want to go and do a video with custom fit guards, I'll go up to custom fit guards and do it. If I want to do a video with Caliber, I can go up to Caliber and do it. If I want to go to Cotswold Classic Arms and make a video, I'll go to Cotswold Classic Arms. So again, there was nothing that really jumped at me that said I need to make a video on this and share this to you all now. I think that maybe just sums up the British shooting show in as a whole. There was nothing that really got us excited, apart from the biltong. The biltong was bloody amazing and hilarious at the same time. This again, this sort of says it all. I'm probably going to spend more time talking about our biltong experience at the British shooting show than I am about any of the other guns. So let's be honest, Connors has a unique look. So we go round to we've got our Scotch eggs, which were amazing, the flapjacks, which were amazing, and then we come round to the biltong, and we've got all different flavors. They had like a Chinese sort of east, like Far East Chinese blended one or whatever. Never had anything like it, and I've had a lot of biltong in my time. And we tried some, and we're like, oh, that's the one. We're going to get some of that. Some for me, some for him. And the guy reaches over, and in a very, very, very thick South African accent, which I'm not going to try and imitate, looks Connors dead in the eyes and goes, look, you can tell me to stop off, but where are you from? And Connors was just like, Cyprus. So, and anybody that knows the history of Cyprus will understand the next question: North or South Cyprus? Connors just very deadpan. It goes, the South. I'm Christian. And just without hesitation, the biltong guy just looks at us both and goes, yeah, we did think, we think it was odd because we don't get many Muslim customers. Connors, no, I genuinely eat bacon. Like that happens a lot more than you would think. or maybe not as much as you'd think, given Connor's unique look, and he did have a backpack. So um, that was probably, apart from seeing the likes of the guys at Caliber and Cotswold Classic Arms, and um, you know I, I could be here all day naming the people that we stopped and talked to. Um, that was genuinely like the highlight. That's the thing that I think of when people ask me about the British Shooting Show, is Connors being misidentified. uh, John, problem here is that if it came to the crunch, we have too many snowflakes, easily offended people, or objectors who wouldn't fight. So we'd send those first. Callum, how would you organise 300 new rangers in the UK if the government randomly put you in charge? Are you guys just trying to get me to effectively run for MP or PM or whatever? How would you organise 300 new rangers? Well, I would ask first of all if there is a budget, because it's all going to depend on money. It also depends what you mean by 300 new rangers. Is this 300 new public rangers or 300 new built from the ground up rangers? I mean, if I have to raise the funds myself, as Prime Minister, I would just put a disgusting amount of tax on electric vehicles, and use the money raised from that tax to fund the construction of the new ranges. Simple as. There's other things as well that I would have. I'd have fines for all sorts. I'd make the fine for middle laning 1,500 quid for every second that you middle lane. That would bring up in quite a bit of money. I'd bring in a fine for doing less than 60 on the motorway and less in traffic. I'll make that 1,500 quid. I'd do all sorts. I could raise the money, no problem. So let's just say we've got an infinite budget. I'd just end up building ranges. There we go. Tax all the snowflakes into oblivion and use their money to build ranges. It's a win-win. They're going to be poor and unhappy. So how would I organize it? Organizing it isn't an issue at all. First of all, as the government has a lot of land, the MOD has a lot of land, you'd be able to find patches of land to be able to allocate towards a range. Moreover, you're the government, so you can seize land. So you could just go around creating pockets of land. I think that would have to potentially be done at a government level, identifying all the spaces and the plots of land. And then in terms of actually running those 300 new rangers, there are an abundance of clubs in every single area that are chomping at the bit to have a proper facility and proper rangers. So all it would be about is finding those clubs with, run down, under sort of underperforming facilities, and go, do you want a brand new shiny range? And you will be surprised how many clubs come out of the woodworks and go, yes, please, absolutely. So yeah, then it's just a case of tying up each club with a range and going, here you go. Go build. That would be my approach. What shows would you recommend? The National Shooting Show. The National Shooting Show, I think, I've never been. It's not, again, I'm not saying I was disappointed with the British Shooting Show. I expected it to be like it was for me. But the National Shooting Show, I generally just look forward to going, and I could happily spend a weekend there. So the National Shooting Show, if the Practical Shooting Show or Target Shooting Show ever comes back, that was right up my street, obviously being very target based. Never been to a shooting show, but I imagine it smells like gunpowder and gun oils. No, it just smells like the NEC. Like any show at the NEC just smells like the NEC. I missed the show for one in London. All the trade shows are shrinking. Again, to caveat, I'm not here to bash the British Shooting Show. Shows in general have had issues, you know, trade shows and, you know, and all of that, and shooting shows and every industry. Also, the focus was on air weapons. Yes, it's very air weapon, you know, air gun. I don't like the term air weapon. It was very air gun, shotgun heavy. There was some practical there, obviously. That that moist. I went for my first time this year at the NEC. I was hoping to learn about getting into action air when going to the British Shooting Show, but couldn't find much relevant to it. Sadly, no. And I am quite disappointed that the UK PSA wasn't there to represent practical shooting and encourage people into the likes of action air and other practical disciplines. Yes, the attendance would have technically came down to the previous council, which I was a part of, and it was something that I was quite adamant and raised numerous times, but we didn't have a PRO. And unfortunately, the majority of the council didn't find it important for us to appoint a PRO to fill the shoes of the ones that resigned, and things like the British Shooting Show just sort of didn't happen. And yes, I could have potentially of driven that and done that, but I'm already having problems handing over the Northern Shooting Show, which has been mostly paid for. So, you know, the issue with the British Shooting Show in terms of the UK PSA is it's only a month after the AGM. So if I've organised it all as current council and then on current council and it's handed over, you've only got a month to hand everything over. And if people won't do it, then you've paid a lot of money and it's been a waste, which seems to be the way we're heading with the Northern Shooting Show. But that's up to the current council. But yeah, the UK PSA should be there 100%. I think it's a failure that they didn't. You know, at the end of the day, an association like the UK PSA has and should be spending the money to be doing it. Coleman's Capers. Hi, Great Tunnel. Thank you very much for stopping by. Just a quick one. My missus and I have been waiting for nearly 2 years for our FACs. We live in Devon. That's probably why. Is this a normal timescale? We were just wondering. At the moment, 2 years isn't sort of too out of the ordinary. But with Devon, obviously, with everything that's happened in terms of shooting in Devon over the last few years, they're having a pretty much a complete overhaul, and they've got some very, very big problems that they need to sort out before they do certificates and applications again. So unfortunately, you're in potentially one of the worst areas of the country in terms of, you know, fast, good service, or, you know, firearms licensing actually following the guidance. So yeah, hopefully they sort their act out soon, but stick in there, you will get it eventually. Funnily enough, a bit of an update in terms of my FAC. Yes, there's been an update. Well, I say an update, and I was going to say some progress. But for anybody in Hampshire, you will be interested to know that there is now a new head of Hampshire firearms licensing, who very much seems to have been brought in there to get their act together, to actually ensure that they are offering a paid for service, because they're offering a paid for service. And after sending I think, polite but firm email to the chief constable, it got passed on to her, and she does seem to be progressing. So I've been told 6 weeks. Again, they've had 3 years, but in fairness, she's only been in the job a month and a half. She obviously needs to make sure that she's up to speed with everything. So I've been told I should have a decision within 6 weeks, or a maximum of 6 weeks. So what that decision will be, well, we just have to wait and see. But a decision is a decision. At least I will then actually have my right to appeal if it's a no, or I can actually just get on with things, sort of like I've been doing for the last 6 years. But again, I still don't necessarily fully understand how they can allow me to be a servant while turning around and saying that I'm a danger. So yeah, here's hoping. But We need maybe a countdown clock at this point. Andy, most of the firearms for sale at the show was £100 more expensive than buying one from your local RFD. Yes, because it doesn't make sense to go there and give show deals, because you've paid your potentially £3,000 for your stand and your thousands of pounds in hotel and travel and all of that. Why can why would you then discount the guns? That's why they need to actually, there's like a show tax to pay for everything that they've outlaid. Jay, did someone delete my message about protecting our country if called up? I didn't see that, but then do have a couple of mods here. They might have done that. Apologies. It would have been their call. Daniel gets it wrong most of the time, but it's free help. Callum, do you think that because IWA is so close to the British shooting show, people are more interested in getting ready for IWA? I think that has something to do with it. I mean, in terms of exhibiting, GMK doesn't exhibit out in IWA. I don't think Sportsman Gun Centre exhibit out there. Viking doesn't. So in terms of people getting ready to go, not necessarily, because yes, people from those companies will be out there and liaising, but it's not like they're then attending a show rather than exhibiting at a show. In terms of being a trade show, and this is what I've said about the British Shooting Show wanting to head more towards a trade show, it is in a little bit of a conflict of IWA. It is only ever going to be a UK trade show. It's never going to be an international one or a European one, because of IWA, because we're so close to it. And speaking of which, IWA is on at the moment, due to other things going on and other commitments. Both myself and Connors couldn't make it out there this year, but Paul is out there. If you happen to be out in IWA, go and abuse Paul. And if you want to talk to somebody about Magload, then you can go to the Double Alpha stand. So this was the brilliance of us going last year. We were able to talk to the likes of Double Alpha. They kindly agreed to stock our stuff, and now we're being represented out there, and we can focus on other things. We were generally going to have our own stand there. We were, whilst we've still got people out there representing us, we still wanted a purely Magload presence out there. It just didn't seem to hook up this year, but we will definitely be attending it next year, no doubt at all. Even just attending it rather than exhibiting, just to talk to people, it's so useful. And again, I'd have to say, if someone said to me, you can choose to go to the British Shooting Show or IWA, from now on, I would be choosing IWA. So I guess, Rick, in terms of somebody from the trade, that what you're saying is, I think there's some weight behind it. But if I can go out to IWA, I can still go to the British Shooting Show. I'm never going to have to choose between the two. Do you travel to Bisley? I can. I don't. I actually can't remember the last time I went to Bisley. No, generally can't remember the last time to go to Bisley. That's it. Working full time in the industry, you actually end up doing less shooting. Adverts. Oh yeah, you got to earn the YouTube money somehow. Is the show at Harrogate and Doncaster worth a visit? The show at Harrogate is the National Shooting Show, previously the Northern Shooting Show. Absolutely, I'd 100% recommend going to the National Shooting Show. The one in Doncaster, never been to, so couldn't say. Having a Jack on the rocks like a peasant, as I was given a 1.5 litre bottle for Christmas. Like the most expensive bottle I've got is, I think it was like 80 quid. I don't have, a 1.5 litre bottle of Jack's is still going to set you back like 40 or 50 quid. I would say most of the stuff that I've got is under 40 quid. So no, I'm not here drinking bloody Macallan. I'm not at that level. this year is the 50th anniversary of the invasion of Cyprus. It's I didn't know the full thing in terms of the history of Cyprus before, meeting Connors and getting to know him, and it's eye opening what happened and what still goes on there. Neil Remy was there on set, gutted to have missed you, and Connors looked so happy in the pictures. That was genuinely his happy face. A fine for not having an FAC. I'm not impressed. Vote Callum for PM. I mean, I'd do it. These prices, Callum, don't encourage businesses. It was my first shooting show, but I had guns for years, but didn't realize the cost. You mentioned a double malt. The Hilton was the cost you mentioned. A double malt in the Hilton was £19.70. Just take your own bottle. Anyway, let's. Yeah, I do like answering and going through all of your questions. There is another bit of news that I very much want to get onto. Unfortunately, we're having a mini sort of gun control network tactic go on at the moment. Now, whilst obviously this story is incredibly sad, like it's sad when anybody loses their partner, and certainly when they're only 30 years old, and I completely sympathize with them. They want to do something, they want to help. Unfortunately, further restricting something or potentially banning something won't help. It's been shown time and time again with handguns, with semi-auto rifles, with air guns up in Scotland. It doesn't work, right? Partner of crossbow victim hopeful on law change. The partner of a man murdered by their neighbor with a crossbow said she was hopeful that tighter ownership laws would be introduced. The Home Office has launched a call for evidence to look at whether there should be a licensing system for the weapons. Ms. Sugden has previously discussed legislation with the government, gathered 42,000 signatures to a petition when she first called for changes. She told the BBC any new rules need to be meaningful because lists of names and addresses won't make much of a difference. And just to share, funnily enough, the only reason I'm aware of this is because I've got a video on the channel about shotguns and shotgun law here within the UK. And it's been going absolutely mental over the last couple of weeks. So I was like, there's something going on. And after a little bit of Google, found this government explorer. So this is gov.uk. Government exploring toughening crossbow rules. A call for evidence has been launched to ask whether current crossbow laws need to be strengthened as the government continues action to prevent violence. Under current legislation, it is illegal for anyone under the age of 18 to purchase or possess a crossbow, and anybody that carries or anyone that carries a crossbow in public without reasonable excuse faces up to 4 years behind bars. The government is considering going further, launching a call for evidence to ask whether these rules are tough enough. Strengthened rules could include a licensing scheme to protect the public, safety, police checks for anybody looking to purchase a crossbow. So the call for evidence, I will put this in the chat now. So I'm going to have to make a video on this because it's still, at the end of the day, a crossbow still has a trigger. You still aim it at a target and there is a projectile that comes out of it. To me, crossbow shooting is still target sports. It's still shooting sports. So we need to protect it. We need to have our say on this. We need to ensure that they don't do anything knee-jerk and ineffective. At the end of the day, my stance on this is the same with the Scotland airgun licensing. When you have something already out there in circulation that you don't have a list, a register, you don't have what's the saying in America? was it registra is it registration leads to confiscation? Um, but anyway, but like when you don't have a register of something, when you don't have a log of who's it's been sold or who's in possession, how are you ever going to ban it, right? If you don't know how many are out there, if you don't know who has them, how are you ever going to feasibly go round and round them up? How do you even ensure that everybody knows that suddenly these tools have been banned or further restricted? And that's exactly what we saw with airgun licensing up in Scotland. It is an almost laughable tiny percentage of the estimated air guns that were ever licensed, that ever actually went through onto a license or a surrender. I think it was something in the region of like it's something like 70 to 90% of the air guns that they predicted out there are still out there unlicensed by every metric possible. The licensing air guns in Scotland was a complete failure. It is a complete failure, to the fact where they use it as an example, or used it more recently as justification, as rationale for not bringing in airgun licensing within the UK. Like literally in Westminster, they were like, yeah, Scotland tried it, didn't work. And that is exactly what you are going to have here with crossbow. Yes, what happened in this incident is tragic, right? And I'm sure there are other instances of people being hurt or worse by crossbows being used by maniacs, by people that are mentally unwell, people that shouldn't be trusted with a blunt spoon, never mind a crossbow. But banning those objects isn't going to do anything, because those people will still be able to go and buy a car. They will still be able to go and buy a knife. They will still be able to go and buy petrol and matches. The people that are crazy, the people that want to do us harm, are always going to find a way to do us harm, whether that's with a crossbow or an air gun. They can pick up a sharp stick or a big rock and throw it at you. What are we going to do? Have rock, stick and stone licenses? Oh, here's my stick certificate. Here's my rock license. Banning things and restricting things has been shown to be ineffective. And again, it angers me, because we end up spending all this time, money, and resource trying to license someone. We spend millions and millions of pounds in compensation, in hand-in schemes and stuff like that. And all it's doing is taking away resource and time and money from the aspects that actually worked, right? I don't, I'm purely speculating. I don't know the ins and outs of this story, but would police response time have, if the police could get to your house in under 30 seconds, would that have prevented this, right? What was the situation? Did the police take you half an hour to get there, and by which time the partner had been shot? It's things like that we should be looking at. I don't think police response time. I don't think anybody would ever object that police being able to get to a situation or an incident in 30 seconds is ever going to be a negative thing, right? It's always going to help prevent crime escalating. So yeah, police resource and boots on the ground and police response times and police training, that's where we need to be, not banning inanimate objects, not licensing inanimate objects. But having said all that, so that is my sense that we should not be licensing them. Like it's tragic, yes. Unfortunately, bad people will do bad things, and it doesn't matter what they have, they will find a way to still do bad things. Having said that, it is still a really interesting topic, because an air gun, a sub 12 foot-pound air gun within the UK, for those of you that don't know, can be owned by anybody over the age of 18, and can be purchased at any point by somebody over the age of 18. And whilst an air gun could be lethal, it's it would be tricky. It would be, it's very rare to have sub 12 foot-pound air rifle used in a homicide, used in a death, right? So they're not, they don't contain the sort of power to, you know, increase the chances of lethality. Doesn't mean they can't, but it is unlikely. But crossbows are a very interesting discussion when you start talking about muzzle energy. That's sort of the wrong, you know, projectile energy, and lethality. So going purely on, well, going on logic, you wouldn't buy them in. You wouldn't bring in any restrictions or any licensing, because it's never been shown to actually be effective in any way, shape, or form. But looking at the logicality of the fact that a 2.2 long rifle is already licensed, it's already under certificate now that they've closed. You know, they've sort of reined in the miniature rifle exemption, but basically you need a certificate or an RFD to be able to acquire and be in possession, not be in possession because miniature rifle, you know what I'm saying. You need a firearm certificate or to be an RFD to buy a 2.2 rifle, right? And crossbows are more powerful than 2.2 rifles. So I do get the conflicting logic of, hang on a minute, we're going to license a 2.2 rimfire, but we're not going to license a crossbow. We're going to license an air gun over 12 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, but we're going to not license a crossbow that has over 10 times the muzzle energy of 12 foot-pounds. And I was looking at it. I knew the rough maths and figures and all of that in my head, but in preparation for the stream, that's right, I was genuinely really prepared this week. It's almost like since, you know, stepping away from a certain organization, I have more time to actually do stuff. And I don't have people moaning at me left, right, and center. How good is that? Anyway, wind yourself in. So Realtree, how deadly are modern crossbows, right? I'm not going to get into that conversation right this second. What I'm here for are the figures. So today's crossbows are all but universally more powerful than any of today's compounds. Finished crossbow weights, crossbow bolts, Jesus, finished crossbow bolts weigh around 400 grains on average, and some are quite a bit heavier. That's as heavy or heavier than the average compound shooter's hunting arrow. Most crossbows, breathe. Most crossbows shoot those bolts at 350 FPS plus. Several will push them to 375, and a few will easily break 400 foot per second. So let's just take, well, this is quite a bit heavier, but let's just take 400 grains and 400 foot per second. If you go into a calculator, if you want to use this is Snappy Targets muzzle energy calculator, and so 400 grains, 400 feet per second, the output comes out at 142 foot-pounds. For comparison, I know, you know, in research and all of that, you never use wiki, but, you know, I'm not doing a dissertation, so bite me. Of course, there's a whole range of different ammunition, but, you know, you're looking, yes, the velocity is about, you know, 4 times, but when it comes to energy, you know, well, kinetic energy, it's half mv squared. But the bullet is about the 10th. That overall, you can see a 2.2 rimfire has a very similar muzzle energy to a crossbow, right? Yes, you've got some here that are, you know, 200, you know, but a lot around the 140. So it is very interesting. A crossbow is effectively as lethal as a 2.2. Of course, we can get into the conversation about precision, about capacity and how quick you can shoot and long distance and all of that. But you have something that effectively one-on-one within 20 yards are going to be as lethal as each other. One, you need a firearm certificate to have. The other, you can go and buy off the shop. So I completely get this rationale and this justification of, hang on a minute, we license and certificate 2.2 rimfire rifles, but we're not going to license and certificate crossbows. Again, going back to what I originally said, unfortunately for the ideology and idealism of just restricting and certificating everything that we don't like, crossbows have been able to be freely bought for forever, right? Quite literally. And nobody knows how many are out there with any great certainty. They didn't even know how many Mars rifles there were, and they are actually on firearm certificates and on the books of RFDs. So nobody knows how many crossbows are out there. Nobody knows who has one. It would just be a futile attempt to try and license them. So I think, yes, there is some merit and there is an argument to say, a crossbow is as lethal as a rifle. It's certainly a hell of a lot more lethal than, a plus 12 foot-pound air rifle by some margin. Yes, I get the rationale saying that they're licensed, they're certificated, so should crossbows. Unfortunately, firearms for the last 100 years have been certificated. They have been, registered. There's been, documentation on them. There hasn't with crossbows. We're just at a point now where it very much is closing the gate after the horse is bolted. But again, something that we should all be aware of, something that we should be watching. It would decimate crossbow shooting. Crossbow shooting is a target sport. They are a tool. There are legitimate, lawful reasons for having them. People safely and responsibly enjoy shooting crossbows without hurting anybody. Just because one person's got hurt, one person's been killed, doesn't mean that we should remove it. We should ban alcohol and cars in that, with that justification and that logic. KM, there's such a thing as a sharp spoon. Yes, there is. That was simple, wasn't it? What was the pistol amnesty? I don't know what you mean by what was the pistol amnesty. I mean, the pistol amnesty was the surrender of people's pistols, but I think you're asking something else there. John Hewitt, archery, compound bows, you can use a tab, glover, or trigger. Oh yes. Yeah, there are some bows with triggers. I see what you're saying there. There is such thing as a sharp spoon. Remember, we almost forgot. Thank you, KM, for reminding me. Remember, we can have knives. Is Happy in? I haven't seen him. He hasn't been doing his job of reminding us we can have knives. Dangerous rocks on our streets. Hobbits with stones. Dangerous. Frank Gray, did someone say knives? Frank had already done it. At least somebody's on the ball. Don't give them ideas about banning sticks and stones. That's our last resort to any form of sport. They're already getting rid of 3-penny football. Can you imagine that? Going down the range. Wah! Double alpha. Oh no, that would have to be buff, buff. Double tapping with stones. Buff, buff. Double alpha. Yes, I would like to. I'd like to call calibration on this plate, please. My stone is a high velocity and should be able to knock it down. And the fact that the plate didn't fall clearly shows that the plate isn't calibrated. In comes the RO with their calibration stone, knocks it over first go every single time. Down in Sussex, you're having a conversation amongst yourselves. Some of the Benjamin air guns I've searched for are for hunting here in the US. Well, yeah, you can get air guns that are pretty powerful that can actually take down deer and big game. Um, how many 2.2? I mean, you're asking questions. I just don't know what questions you're really asking. I agree. Tricky one. Some of those crossbows can punch a bolt um, out at over 60 foot-pounds. Well, as we've just worked out, there's ones capable of doing over double that. Um, it's a tricky one. It is really a tricky one. I think if purely you're going to look at the lethality of things, then yeah, I think crossbows should be certificated. In terms of if that would actually prevent some nutcase from dusting off their crossbow in their shed, like the sort of people, the sort of person that is going to aim a crossbow and pull the trigger at another person is not the sort of person that is going to surrender that crossbow or go and get a certificate for it. That's why this falls down completely. It's like if somebody is capable and willing to murder another person, they are not going to be worried about being, found in possession of a crossbow. They're the sort of person that really don't care about that sort of thing. If they end up getting a couple of years for possession of a crossbow, yeah, whatever. The sort of people that are going to be going around shooting others with crossbows, I can't really say they're going to have a lot to live for to begin with. So again, that's why it wouldn't work. So it's not really the logic or the rationale here about how dangerous they are, how lethal they are, the damage they can do. It's more about it just wouldn't a certificate of licensing or further restrictions just wouldn't be effective. A sharp spoon is a spork. No, a spork is a pointy spoon, not a sharp spoon. I want to find you guys a sharp spoon. Welcome to English spooning. Sharp spoon. I know what I've got in my head. I don't know what it's necessarily called. I'll just go to images. I did not think I'd be searching for sharp spoons. I'm thinking like the camping spoons with the knives on. That's what I've seen. That's what I mean by a sharp spoon. There we go. I mean, technically, that's a here we go. Share this tab instead. Let's get this up. Can't believe we're actually doing this. That's a serrated spoon, not necessarily sharp. That doesn't look particularly sharp, if I'm going to be completely honest. This is a dangerous game that I'm playing. Freely searching Google Images. When spoon sharp, cut milk. Okay. Anyway, that's enough. Anyway, you can have a sharp spoon. I'll make one. I'll get Connors to sharpen up a spoon, and there we go. If it doesn't exist, I'll invent it. But yeah, I'm talking about there we go. Wanted to switch it. I'm thinking like a camping spoon that has like the knife side of it. They exist. While I agree that crossbows are possibly a loophole, foot-pounds isn't a great measure of lethality. It doesn't take into account hydrostatic shock, nor does it account for bullet/arrowhead design. No, but given that we used to use crossbows to defend ourselves in castles, and that many people do go out and hunt game with crossbows, again, I think it's a fairly good demonstration. I think it's pretty hard to argue that crossbows aren't effective. This sort of thing crosses into work for me, but explaining over the YouTube comment section isn't the easiest. No, it never is. Thank you, explosives ordnance engineering masters. We're not talking about exploding crossbows here. Like, wind yourself in. That Moist 100% correct in regards to the sort of person that will do something bad with a crossbow is not going to hand it in, but people like to be made to feel like problems are magically fixed with bans. Yes, they do seem to be doing something. A fistful of gravel is a is a high capacity assault rock. Oh, this has got legs. This really has got legs. I nearly spat my vodka out. English spooning. I'm seriously. If I actually made half of the patches that I say I would made and they sold, I could retire. Serrated spoon, zombie spork. Well, technically, any knife that you put the word zombie on becomes a zombie knife. And if the spoon has serrations, then therefore is effectively a knife, and you put the word zombie on it, it would be a zombie assault high capacity spork. Swiss military testing shower jewel. What? Swiss military testing shower 80 joules. Shows, not shower. Okay. Swiss military testing shows 80 joules would be lethal in 20% of cases where projectiles impact the head, a 4% in thorax. 90% lethality needs 150 joules, and 500 joules what? I don't think it's necessarily that it's the comment sections that's making this hard for you. 80 joules would be lethal in 20% of cases where projectile impacts the head, 4% in thorax, 90% lethality is needs 90% lethality needs 150 joules and 500 joules in thorax. Okay. 80 joules equals 50 foot-pounds. 500 joules equals 368 foot-pounds. Yes. But it was more the comparison to a 2.2, right? A 2.2 is not a particularly lethal round, right? It's not. It's very much about placement. You know, there's stories out there. If you watch Donut Operator for 5 bloody minutes, you will hear about stories of 2.2. It's not, you know, I'm going to avoid getting into the whole conversation. I'm not saying that, 140 joules is, oh my God, everybody in a 1 mile square radius. You know what I mean? It's not like if you shoot a crossbow in a room full of people, everyone's going to die, right? They're not that lethal. What I'm saying, what it's more about the comparison of, is that a 2.2 is considered a lethal barreled weapon. It's considered, its lethality is considered enough to justify it being on a firearm certificate. Its potential posed danger in the wrong hands justifies it being on a firearm certificate. When you look at a crossbow with similar energy levels, that's where you get the comparison. So yeah, I get there are far more effective things out there, but that's not sort of the point that I'm going at here. JB Hold, don't get shot. That is, it's a there is a method. Mentioned earlier, but a full bore club I was looking at joining want £500 to take their modules and membership, new to getting an FAC and already being put off. I'd find another club. That is extortionate. You shouldn't be spending that. You know, places like KFC, you pay your, is it like 60 quid membership now? But anyway, it's like 50, 60 pound membership for KFC. That's it. You pay your range fees like everybody else does. You won't be charged 500 quid. That is just extortion. Let me guess, is it Midlands or Bisley? Any Home Office approved club will work for an FAC. I had to do a £50 try shoot to join mine, and that was it. Absolutely. Frank O'Grady, we can have knives, but prefer English spooning. English sporking. English rocking. English assault rocks and sticks. Sticks and stones may break may break my bones, but my high capacity rocks will hurt everyone. Uh, Black Guinea Pig, I wouldn't want to be shot by anything. Oh yeah. My main point is that's how neighbors should measure everything now. It's not about this, you know, is it a lethal barreled weapon? There should be like this sliding scale of what would I want to be shot with least? It's like, and there should be a crossover. I could, yeah, that I would risk. Okay, no certification. If you maybe that is a whole new way of looking at firearms licensing. Anything that you don't want to be shot by, you need a certificate to own. There we go. Callum for PM. I see you've played Knifey Spoony before. Sporky assault rocks. I wouldn't be by shot by anything. My point is that the arrowhead will play a huge part, which the Home Office are also consulting on. Target bolts are far less of an issue. Cool. Yeah. So what you're saying is we need to ban the assault bolts. That's it. It's those damn high capacity zombie assault bolts. No, I get what you're saying. Absolutely. Yeah, just like, you know, a bullet head has a massive impact on the performance of a gun. If you use target bolts, they are unlikely to dump energy particularly well. So while they carry lethal amounts of energy, they may not impart, dump this energy into someone/thing. Yeah, that is a very good point. Maybe that would be a compromise. It's like, but then a hunt, you know, people go and hunt with crossbows. Although I'm pretty sure there's certain rules and regulations on not using crossbows in the UK for hunting. I think you're quite limited of what you can actually shoot with them, if anything. But yeah, I mean, if there's no legitimate reason for having a certain, but again, like, what's the point? Because okay, right, we're going to ban certain bolt heads. They're not exactly that complex to make, right? You know, you just unscrew or take apart your target bolt head, and anybody with a lathe can make their own one, or anyone with a lead mold could make their own one. I'd I would be more. I'd be less. I would give less objection to maybe restricting the type, shape, size of a bolt, rather than, you know, I would certainly go for that over banning or licensing crossbows as a whole, 100%. But I still don't know if you can really justify it. Yeah, hunting with crossbows is illegal in the UK. There we go. So, you know, so on that note, you don't actually have any legitimate reason for having any other bolt than a target bolt. So yeah, that's probably then where they're going to end up going. They're going to limit the type of bolt that they use. Again, I'm not going to be volunteering to stand in front of um, a crossbow target shooter anytime soon. Just to remind you all, in terms of consultations and your calls for evidence and stuff like that, we do have a very important one that could make very big changes and be a massive boost to our industry. If you want to learn more about it, go and check out last week's live stream, because we covered it in depth. I will be doing a video on this. Really wanted to get one out for last weekend, try and get it out for this weekend, but I will be doing a video on this. Is very important, and also the crossbow one to follow. But there is a consultation at the moment on moderators, and it's looking very, very positive that they will be de-restricting deregulating sound moderators, suppressors, silencers, whatever you want to call them, meaning that anybody can buy them here in the UK without a certificate. And for many, many reasons that we went into last week, it makes a lot of sense. It should have been done a very long time ago. So I'm going to drop this link quickly into the comment section. So just make sure that you go and check that out and complete it if you haven't already. If you really want help with it, literally you just need to put strongly agree for everything and done. But there's a little bit more in terms of using this opportunities for some other big changes as well, but I will put that in a more concise video that will come out very, very soon. Worst case, you can always do two submissions. Let's just see what you're saying quickly. Yeah, hunting with any bow is illegal in the UK. Yeah, that's what I thought. There are lots of complicated and scientific ways that they are also historically mostly some pretty gruesome ones, I can imagine. Frank O'Grady, I got hit with a makeshift catapult as a kid and it bloody hurt, I can imagine. Imagine getting hit now with the new ones and a ball bearing. Yes, I'd be running for the hills as well. I don't see the point in restricting certain bolts. People could easily manufacture any of them, and dodgy individuals probably will. Completely agree. I sent the moderator link to my club, and they have seen it, and up to know they have all replied. Great work. Good to hear. As many people need to reply to that as possible. On that note, I think I am going to leave it there for you guys. Before you all head off, though, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed, because if you're liking this, then you should be subscribing. If you're watching this and you don't like it, I don't know why you're watching. So you should be hitting that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. I know you probably hear it in all the other YouTube streams and videos and all that, but it's generally true. Like 80% of people that end up watching any YouTube channel aren't subscribed, which is like madness. And I'm genuinely guilty of doing it myself. There's channels that I watch all the time that I'm not subscribed to, and I feel bad. But you should feel badder for not subscribing to English Shooting, because it hurts my feelings. Make me happy. Make me happy to subscribe and like. But yeah, on that note, thanks everyone for joining. I've got to try and make this all ready so that it actually works. So professional. No, that was the wrong button. How do I? Well, that works. But I want to be bigger. I want to be full screen. Why? There we go. There we go. I still don't know how to use this thing. It's fine. But anyway, thanks everyone for joining. We should be. Let me check the calendar. Just make sure I haven't got a clash. Next week, what are we doing next week? Yeah, free. So should be back, same place, same time. So you should definitely subscribe, because I won't be napping off to some competition or somewhere. But there we go. Just a reminder, guys, if you do ever want to come down, see myself and Connor's, it sounds like we're very desperate and lonely. There seems to be a general misconception that like Magload isn't a shop. We are a shop. You are welcome anytime. You can drop in. There's usually somebody there 10 till 5. If you want to make sure we're definitely there, phone, message, email, but you are always welcome to come down and hang out at Magload. I can't always guarantee that there will be time for cigars and bourbon, but my arm can be very easily twisted. So there we go. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic week ahead. Thanks for joining. Make sure you've liked, subscribed, and of course, as always, I hope to see you soon.